video I'm going to show you how I painted the skin of my Necromancer. You can get a resin copy of the bust from my homepage through the email form. There's a link in the description. A PDF file on the colors I used is uploaded to my Patreon page. It does include how I painted the rest of the bust as well. As a Patreon you will get guides on what colors I used and also why I used them on all my painted miniatures, regardless if there's going to be video footage or not. Patrons also get exclusive videos on a regular basis. You can find the link in the top right corner. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. As always, enjoy the video. Okay, so let's add some, well, I think this is gray. For some highlights. So just putting in the highlights, and I'm not too worried about smoothing yet. Kind of don't like to paint bald heads because I tend to make them too light, I guess. But let's see how we do on this one. Right, so we're going to intensify the lighter skin color, where it should stay really light anyway, so the forehead and the nose. So I just need to kind of feels with the white base coat, and I just did it for so that it shows better on stream. The white base coat always kind of feels like is drinking a lot of the initial layers, so the initial layers are always a bit dry, it feels. I need to get used to that again. And again, here I'm not really worried if it does look a bit spotty, because the skin is supposed to be really old and have a bit of an unlit feel. So the red or the reddish sepia coming or shining through from below doesn't really bother me too much. Okay, usually when I do have to mix new colors, I tend to check if the mixture is right on some part that is exposed anyway, so that it will catch a lot of light, like on the nose, for example. And yeah, I'll just continue lightening up this mixture, and then eventually so yeah, I'll just go on lightening the forehead, for example, and all the other areas that should catch some light, or that would catch more light. And then when I have the light where I want it to be, I'll go back and add some shadows and also different shades of colors. Again, just going with the spotty theme, just randomly hitting with the brush. To apply some lights. And what I do is I'll just alternate the thickness of layers. So here I just have a really diluted mixture on the brush. So that the rest of what is already painted does shine through. So yeah, and people keep asking me about doing painting techniques videos, and I think now it does make somewhat sense to you, whoever is watching, why I can't really do that, because I mean, how do you what box do you put this technique in? Right? It's not really layering, it's not really glazing, maybe it's a mixture of both, I don't know. But yeah, it's just okay, here I need some spotty brush strokes, and yeah, that means I need to have the rest of the color shine through and get a spotty finish. So yeah, I just dab the brush on and try to create some texture and keep it random. and I just follow the sculpt with the brush strokes. So for example here I do have a lot of wrinkles that go up the neck, and I just try to touch on them as I highlight them and keep the darker areas untouched. Also, this is a texture that you can't really get with an airbrush. I mean, you technically could, but I feel like I do have a lot more control over how the results look with just a brush. Okay, and here I'll just put in a few dots as far as to pronounce the light that would be caught by the cheekbones, and I want the texture of the skin to still show, so dabbing a bit of white, well, the off-white here onto the skin and adding a few lines here and there where it does seem appropriate. So yeah, basically just creating some texture. to play along with the sculpt. Okay, down here I'm not too happy with. I basically forgot to add a few medium tones here, especially down here. So I'll skip that for now, and then mix in a bit of the darker color again as I move to that spot. And up here I also follow the sculpted lines and apply some highlights and texture. And when you add too much color, you can just dab on with a dry finger and yeah, scatter this layer a bit. Usually works pretty good. So paint a few of these lines down here. And some of the detail here that would also catch a bit of light. Just basically playing with light and texture. Just don't want to go too light. So yeah, let's just try and add a bit of the almost white in some really exposed areas so that we can see how it looks in the end. So that we still keep a few of the midtones. So the scars, they do actually have very sharp lines on the edges. So the ones that do point up, I kind of want to emphasize them a bit with some light, even before we are actually working on them. Just so that when it gets toned down, or again a bit, there's still a hint of that edge showing. Also on the ears, there's a few areas that would catch a lot more light than others. Already can sketch those in. Okay, so also adding a bit of the medium tone to these areas. Mixing a bit of a bluish gray. Not going for white all the way. So that we can use white as a highlight color. I think we can do with one more layer of highlights, at least in strategical parts. To emphasize the contrast a bit more. So on the temples, going to bring out a bit more of that red. Yeah, maybe red pinkish color. Okay, and for the shadows I want a bit of blue. We have some, in the darker areas there's still some black shining through, so that's what I want to mimic. So we'll see, really dark blue is the dark sea blue. Now let's see if I can find it. Okay, so let's paint some of the red that we need in the corner of the eyes while we're on it. So I think you can see that, just the very corners. A bit like a wash maybe, and let everything pool. And then as I showed earlier, this is what we're aiming for. So later when I'm going to do the detailing off stream, because I need to paint all the lights like this and this with a magnifying glass. Okay. And I think for the eyes, I also want some green. So we are now moving into painting the shadows and the color variations. And usually for the shadows I don't straightforward paint just the shadow color, but I do mix it with the base color, so that's not too drastic of a change. But I'm mixing in some blue. And some green. So a couple of colder colors. And I'll have to come down here a bit. Maybe not this much. But yeah, just some color variation around the eyes. And then maybe a bit more blue up here. Also shadows under the nose. And just below the lip is also a good place for some shadows. And I'm adding a bit red to the mix. And just below the cheeks. Also want to darken that a bit and add a bit of color variation. Okay, just randomly adding some spots of dark sea blue. And all of the shadows. Back here there's a bit of a shadowy area. And now it's just adding nuances and color variation really. So I want to keep the pale appearance, but still want some spots of color. So now I'm just putting on thin layers where I want a bit of color to appear. And then we will see, maybe I'm going to need to redo some of the skin to make it pale again. But right now it's just exaggerating and adding contrast. maybe around scars. I'm also adding some red. I mean, sometimes you see when people use out of the bottle skin tones, they tend to end up really, well, what's the word, yellowish, or yeah, and I didn't want to go for a yellow skin tone here, so a bit of a, yeah, just out of this world red is what I was aiming for. And then just pale color, and there's a bit of blue in this, especially when you let the black base coat shine through a bit. So definitely a nice effect. Really glad how it turned out. Turned out better than I expected, to be honest. Okay, also here I'm adding more color variation, some red here, and whoa, don't touch the highlights. And just under the skin, under the chin, I'll probably do a lot more blue. Okay, so like I said, below the chin, just more and more blue, because that's an area where we probably will have a lot of shadow. Okay, so I think I'm somewhat happy with the skin tone for now. As I add the other colors, you know, as you remember, for example, the dress that everyone saw different, it just it matters so much what color you put next to another color. So that's why I'm probably going to leave the face like this for now. And yeah, put in all the other colors, or well, at least start painting the armor. And then see how it works together. Okay, I think that red does look good, so I think I'm going to give it another pass.